بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد فقد قال الحكيم في كتابه الكريم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. Dear brothers and sisters, in this session I am going to elaborate on the remaining rules concerning those things which invalidate the fast. As I mentioned, there are 9 things which make the fast void. Those 9 things are eating and drinking, sexual intercourse, masturbation, ascribing lies to God, to the Prophet, and to his successors, to the vicegerents of the Holy Prophet, submerging your head under water or allowing thick dust into your throat, vomiting, and also remaining in janaba until the call for prayer, for Fajr prayers, or until dawn, and then enema with liquid. These are the 9 things which make the fast void. In the previous session, I did explain the rules concerning eating and drinking, which is the most clear and obvious manifestation of breaking fast, because if a person eats and drinks something, then there is no doubt that his fast becomes void. Now, I'm not going to repeat what I have already mentioned about eating and drinking. I will begin with the second invalidating agent, the second object or the thing which makes the fast void. The second thing is sexual intercourse. If a person has sexual intercourse, his fast becomes void. And of course there are actually details regarding having sexual intercourse, since the matter is a little bit let's say embarrassing for some people to hear. I would avoid explaining or giving the details, but generally you should know that having sexual intercourse is not allowed while you are fasting. However, if you are forgetful, if you are oblivious of the fact that you are fasting and you have sexual intercourse and later on you realize that you are fasting, then your fast is valid and there is no objection to your fast. It's not necessary to repeat, or it's not necessary to give the qada of that fast. The same is the case when you are helpless, when you are compelled to have sexual intercourse. If someone, let's say, if a woman in power forces you or makes you to have sexual intercourse with her, then your fast does not become void, because you are in a helpless situation. you could not have avoided the sexual intercourse. In that case, your fast is valid. Remember, there is a difference between having sexual intercourse and between playing with your wife. Foreplay, what is normally termed by people, will not affect your fast. Actions like kissing, like hugging, or like touching, and all these things are allowed during fasting, and it will not be haram to touch your wife or to kiss her or to engage in foreplay and not sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse is the only thing that is forbidden when it comes to having conjugal relationship with your wife. And it should be noted that sometimes when you are playing with your wife, or when you are talking or kissing or hugging her, a kind of liquid does come out, pure and crystal liquid, but it is sticky liquid, comes out of the male organ and also of female organ. That sticky liquid does not make the fast white. It is normally called precum, and precum does not make the fast white. In Arabic terminology, that liquid is called mazi. Mazi does not invalidate the fast. So many people do not know that foreplay is allowed. Many people do not know that the precum does not make fast white. So they start keeping away, they start distancing themselves from their wives. And of course, it's better to distance, to keep a distance, and to not to have any relation, any physical contact with your wife when you are fasting, because it's likely that you might ejaculate. But even if you ejaculate unexpectedly, your fast will not be made white. This is the second thing which makes your fast white. The second thing is masturbation. Masturbation is a haram act. It is one of the great sins. It is one of the capital sins, or one of the major sins which you should avoid. Masturbation is forbidden. It has been forbidden by the Holy Prophet and by the Imams, and there is no doubt as to the prohibition of masturbation. Many people even think that masturbation, especially the young people, did not know that masturbation was forbidden and they were masturbating, but masturbation is forbidden. If you did not know that, you should know now that it is not permissible for you to masturbate and to engage in self-gratification, to engage in self-pleasure. Is forbidden. There is one thing that you should know. Some people do ask this question, and of course this is one of the frequently asked questions. Many people ask as to what we should do about masturbation because they are addicted to this haram act. Of course, the ground religious authorities have advised and have said that in order for you to get rid of masturbation, you have to avoid going to places where you are sexually excited, where you are sexually aroused and provoked. You should not go to places, to bisexual environments where you are sexually aroused. And you should also avoid being alone. You should also avoid being alone, because in loneliness, when you are alone, you might start thinking about women, about girls, and so on and so forth. So do not be alone. This is the second solution. The third solution is that you have to take exercise. You have to go out to the park or to some places, to a sports club or to a gymnasium to exercise. And exercise is very helpful for physical adjustment, for the adjustment of your powers, and for physical balance and sexual and reduction of sexual feelings. That is the third solution. And the fourth solution, of course, is that you should observe fast. If there is no way to control yourself, if you are afraid of falling into a sin, if you're likely to engage in a haram act as a result of your sexual instincts, then you must observe fast. And observe fast, of course, observing fast is a good protection. It helps you, it protects you from falling into sin and from committing an evil.
يا دافع الخطوب يا جابر المعطوف يا من هو مندوبي فعفوك مطلوبي يا دافع الخطوب يا جابر المعطوف يا من هو مندوبي فعفوك مطلوبي يا ستار العيوب يا غفار الذنوب يا ستار العيوب يا غفار الذنوب يا علام الغيوب يا كشاف الكروب.
Dear brothers and sisters, now having said that, if you masturbate intentionally, deliberately, there is no doubt that you have broken your fast, and there will be kafara will also be obligatory. You have to pay kafara for having broken your fast, because you have done it deliberately, you have done it intentionally. And of course there are different views about the kafara of fasting. Some scholars have said that you have to combine between setting a slave free and between fasting for 60 days, 31 days in a row, and also feeding 60 poor people to their fill, or maybe giving 750 grams of foodstuffs to each one of the 60 people. If you commit masturbation, if you commit this sin, if you masturbate, and if ejaculation takes place, you have to give a kafara of all the three things which I mentioned. And this isn't the case when you engage deliberately in such a sinful act. But okay, if you do not masturbate intentionally, and if ejaculation takes place by itself involuntarily, for example, you go out into the streets and you see some pictures, or maybe not intentionally, of course, or maybe you are involuntarily aroused, then ejaculation takes place. The ejaculation will not affect your fast. It will not invalidate your fast. Or maybe you go to sleep and you enter the state of janaba because you start wet dreaming, and wet dreaming does not make your fast void, because it's not within your control, it is not within your intention. All this happens by itself and involuntarily. Now, even if you know for sure that if you go to sleep, you will enter the state of janaba, you will ejaculate, and you will start wet dreaming, then in this case, it's permissible to go to sleep. You are not supposed to avoid going to sleep. You can go to sleep. There is one thing that has to be taken into consideration. If you are sleeping at daytime and you find yourself in the state of janaba, you find semen on your clothes and you become certain that you have ejaculated during sleep, is it necessary, the question is it necessary for you to take immediate action to perform ghusl or to perform the major ablution or not? Of course, it is not necessary. It's not necessary. Ghusl is not necessary to be performed immediately, except if you are going to offer your prayers, you have to perform ghusl, because ghusl in this case is obligatory only for the prayer, not for the fast, because your fast is valid already. And if you have enough time left for the prayers, you are free to perform ghusl now or when it's closed, when or later. Ghusl is necessary and obligatory only for the prayers, in this case, when you have had wet dreaming and when you have entered the state of janaba. The third thing which makes fast is ascribing lies to Allah and to His Prophet. There is no doubt that if you attribute or if you ascribe a lie, whether you forge or fabricate the lie yourself or someone else has lied and you are just telling that to someone else, that will make your fast void. If you know for sure that this is a lie, if you know for sure that something is false and that is a lie which is ascribed to the Prophet and to Allah, then it is not permissible to tell that to any people. It's not permissible to ascribe a lie to the Prophet, to Allah, and also to the vicegerents of the Holy Prophet, to his righteous successors. For example, the Imams. The Imams are the righteous successors and the divinely appointed successors of the Holy Prophet. And it's haram, it is prohibited to ascribe any falsehood or any lies to them as well. And also the grand religious authorities have said that it is forbidden to impute lies to Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha also. If you do so, your fast will be made void. Of course, if you quote something or if you relate something as the word of Allah or of the Holy Prophet with the belief that it is true, but you will realize later that it is false, then your fast does not become void, it does not become invalid. But if you are sure, if you are certain that something is untrue and something is a lie, and you ascribe it to God or to the Prophet, and later you realize that it was true, it was not a lie, in this case, again your fast becomes void, and as obligatory precaution, you must, of course, your fast becomes void as an obligatory precaution. You must, of course, give the qada of that fast and also give kafara. Because in all these 9 cases which I have mentioned, some of these things which I mentioned are essentially permissible, essentially allowed. For example, eating and drinking, eating food is allowed essentially when we are not fasting. And drinking water is allowed by itself. But drinking wine is essentially and basically forbidden. Attributing a false or a lie to the Holy Prophet and to the vicegerents or to Allah is essentially and basically forbidden. Even if you are not fasting, it is haram to ascribe a lie to Allah and to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family. But if you commit such acts, then it is, of course, according to some scholars, if you commit an essentially and a basically forbidden and haram act, then you have to combine between all the 3 kafaras. But if you just break your fast by eating and drinking something halal, of course you have broken your fast, and you are not supposed to combine between all the 3 kafaras. It's not necessary to pay and to give the 3 kafaras. You have to give one of the kafaras, and that you are free to set a slave free, or to feed 60 people to their fill, or maybe you have to observe fast for 60 days and 31 days in a row. Of course, observing fast for 60 days is difficult for most of us. You can give food to 60 poor and needy but faithful people.
ناجيتك يا رحمن ودعوتك يا ديان يا خالق الإنسان الله 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 يا خالق الإنسان الله الله الله.
Now, the next thing which is haram to do for a fasting person is to let dust reach your throat. If you know there is dust somewhere in the room, or there is thick smoke which will go into your throat, it's not permissible for you to go there and to let dust get into your throat. If the dust is thick enough and it gets into your throat, then it will make your fast void. But if you can manage to control your nostrils and your mouth and to put on a mask to prevent the dust from going or from getting into your throat, then it will not make your fast void. Now there is one question which is normally asked by people, and that is whether smoking is allowed or not during fasting. Smoking shisha, smoking hookah, and some people say hookah, some people say okay shisha, and so on and so forth. That the words are different but the meaning is the same. Of course, smoking, whether it is cigarette, whether it is hookah or shisha, because the Arab people they call it shisha. In this case, smoking is not allowed as an obligatory precaution. Some scholars have, of course, have not given a direct fatwa, a direct verdict as to the impermissibility and prohibition of smoking. For example, Grand Ayatollah Sistani says that as an obligatory precaution, one should avoid smoking cigarette or smoking hookah, and so on and so forth. Smoking is not allowed. But okay, there are other scholars who have frankly given their fatwa saying that smoking is absolutely forbidden and it will break your fast. And there are some scholars who have even forbidden smoking even if you are not fasting. Smoking is forbidden because of its injurious nature, because it is dangerous for your health. The fatwas are different, and of course you have to turn to the Risala, to the epistles of Islamic laws written by grand religious authorities or by the marja whom you follow. It's not necessary to learn the fatwa of all and different scholars and different ulama. You should read the Risala of your own marja whom you consider to be qualified for taqleed. The next thing which makes your fast void is immersing one's head under water. It's not permissible to immerse your head under water if you are fasting. And if you dive into water without a reason, without a justification, and you are fasting, you have to give the qada of that fast. Even some scholars have said if someone is drowning, and it's obligatory for you to take that person out, and to protect, save him and you need to dive deep into water in order to bring him out. In this case, although you have done an obligatory duty, that is the protection and saving of the life of a Muslim, but then you have to give the qada of that fast because you have gone deep underwater and you have submerged your head underwater. Your fast has been made white. Now there is a clear difference of fatwa here among scholars. There are some scholars like Grand Ayatollah Sistani who says that submerging your head underwater does not invalidate your fast. You perhaps did not know about that because most of the scholars have said that submerging your head underwater will make your fast white. But the Ayatollah Sistani says that submerging your head underwater does not invalidate your fast. Okay. It is makruh. It's only abominable. It's undesirable to go underwater and to submerge your head, but your fast remains intact. It will not be affected. Grand Ayatollah Sistani says that if a person dives into water with the intention of ghusl irtimasi, for example, and he dives underwater submerging his head with the intention of ghusl, he says that both his ghusl as well as his fast will be valid. His fast will not be affected, and he has also performed his ghusl. With one diving, he has performed his ghusl, and also his fast will also not be affected. That is his opinion, and of course other scholars, most of other scholars have a different fatwa, and you cannot, in this situation when you are fasting, you cannot dive underwater to perform ghusl. So you have to take notice of the variation in the fatwa of the grand religious authorities. And of course another thing which makes your fast white is to remain in janaba or to remain in haiz and nifas till the adhan for Fajr prayer. Of course, if a person deliberately and intentionally remains either in janaba, or if a woman remains in the state of haiz, or she remains in the state of nifas, and she does not perform ghusl, then her fast becomes white, and she must also give kafara. It is necessary if one knows that she is or he is in the state of janaba. I give you the example of janaba because a man or a woman either of them can be in the state of janaba. If one is in the state of janaba, he should take action to perform ghusl. And of course, if it's at night time and he goes to sleep thinking or expecting that he will wake up and he could not wake up, his fast remains valid. It is not necessary for him to break his fast or to eat something because thinking that his fast has been made white. No. If you deliberately and intentionally remain asleep, in that case, your fast becomes white. If you decided to wake up, and you woke up, but then again you looked at your time, at your watch, and there was still time left for until dawn prayer, and you slept, and you decided to wake up again after an hour, let's say, within the time left. If in this case you wake up again, if you could not wake up, of course, your fast will remain valid, and you do not have to give any qada for that. If a person even guesses and thinks and conjectures that he will likely wake up, but he could not wake up for ghusl, then his fast remains white. If a person knows for sure that he cannot wake up, and he goes to sleep, in this case, of course, he cannot his fast is void, and he must, of course, give the qada of that fast. There is no doubt that his fast will be void. And of course, enema is the next thing which makes the fast void. Enema means the liquid which is inserted into the anus for some medical reasons or for some reasons. Insertion or introduction of liquid into the anus will make the fast void. But okay, if you take medicine or hard object or something like which is not liquid through the anus, it will not make your fast void. Now the last thing which makes your fast void is vomiting. If you intentionally vomit, then your fast will become void. And also if you eat something and you know that if you eat a kind of food or drink a kind of water and you will vomit later on when you are fasting, it's not permissible to eat that food. And if you vomit, then of course you will have to give the qada of the fast, because you knew that. Okay, if you did not know that a certain food will provoke vomiting, then there is no problem, because you did not deliberately and intentionally vomit. Then in that case your fast remains valid. These are the 9 things which make the fast void, and I hope you have followed and understood everything. And inshallah in the next session to come I will explain further the other rules, the kafara especially, of breaking your fast. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا
يا ربنا
واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا يا ربنا ربنا يا ربنا يا ربنا